Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Hello. Welcome back. We're excited to have you here. Today we have a special guest. Her name is Shellee Howard. Say hello, Shellee.
Well, hello.
Go ahead and have Jason introduce Shellee so we know who she is and where she comes from.
All right, this is Jason Henderson, Dr. Jason Henderson. Happy to have you back on our podcast listening. Scott, real quick question. What is someplace in the world that you would love to go that you have never been?
That's a good question. I probably would like to go see the Great Wall of China.
Well, our guest today, believe it or not, has been many places. In fact, it's one of her passions. She loves to see the world. She is an empty nester, and so whenever she has a chance to pick up and bug out, she is going. I have talked to her in various places around the world at different times. It's actually kind of fun. I remember one time speaking with her through text. There was a 12-hour difference between us. I believe you're in Dubai, right, Shellee?
Absolutely.
So now the question to you, have you been to the Great Wall of China? Have you seen that?
Yes, I have twice.
Twice. Wow. I love it. So, Shellee, tell us a little bit more about you. I know that you're an empty nester. I know that you have how many children?
So I have 2 biological, 2 step, and 1 Italian exchange student.
Right. And you kind of went into business with your exchange student recently, didn't you?
Yeah, she just turned 18 and we're looking for a short-term rental in the Amalfi Coast.
Wow. And you were required, I think you said something about being required to go over there and check it out with her.
Oh,
To go look?
absolutely. It was mandatory. I can't tell you. They just forced me to go back to Italy and I'm going fighting and kicking the whole way.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So the reason, everyone, that we invited Shellee onto our podcast is one of her expertise is helping families afford college. In fact, both of your biological children went to, I don't remember what colleges they went to. One went to...
I'll help you out. The first one went to Harvard, undergrad, UC San Diego Medical School, and now he's an orthopedic surgeon at UCLA. My second born went to University of Alabama, graduated debt-free, went on to CBU, graduated with money in her pocket, and she's now a registered pediatric nurse in an emergency room. So the first 2 are done. My 2 stepchildren are actually in college, and my exchange student has 1 more year of high school.
So again, those 2 biological children went to college with a lot less expense than what most people would think. And that is Shellee's expertise. She helps families afford college. She helps families be in a situation to where not only is the outlay in tuition less, she also helps the kids or the students, if you will, be better prepared to hit college running, kind of like knowing what they want to major in versus going, okay, I'm going to go the first year and I'm going to do generals. And then a second year, I'm going to figure out this. And then I'm going to change my major. And they end up, instead of 4 years, at 5, 6, 7 years. So tell us a little bit, Shellee, how you go through that process.
So depending on when the student finds college ready, because obviously that's the biggest challenge, we have 2 7th graders this year who are incredibly mature for their age. I never thought I'd see it. And so we allowed 2 7th graders in our program. Typically, a family would start with us as they promote from 8th grade. So that summer going into high school where they have very little to do, relatively speaking, they get a huge jump start on the process. They pick their high school classes, they have their extracurricular set, they're doing community service, and they have a massive jump start. But the reality is, I also get freshmen, sophomore, juniors, seniors, transfer students, MBA, PhD. We help students wherever they're at. But if they want to go without debt, it's critical that they do it during the second semester of their high school student's sophomore year and the first semester of their junior year, because that is what their first FAFSA will look at. So when people ask me when is the best time to start, depends if you want to pay full price or if you want to go without debt.
Well, thank you, Shellee. You used the term just a second ago, FAFSA. Please describe a little bit more about that. Many of our listeners may not understand what that is. What does FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A, stand for?
So it is a government. The hardest part is helping people not get wrapped up into the words, but the FAFSA is a free government form that you must use if you want to receive any money from scholarships that are non-independent. So if they're going to come from the college, the government, I hate to even say the word loans, but yeah, that's all tied into it too. So that is your ticket to not paying full price. And so for those of you who are still scratching your head thinking, well, I probably make too much money because I live in California, which is where a lot of my families live. The reality is it's where your assets are held. And that is how I initially got connected to Jason and Scott, is because they know where you can put your money that the FAFSA will not look. So it is a huge benefit. And that's why I think these two gentlemen are genius in what they do.
Well, thanks for that endorsement. Let's turn to you, Scott. I know that you recently graduated from college, the Marriott School of Business. At what point did you start to utilize the FAFSA?
I started right away. Well, scratch that. I started my second semester in college because I did not realize that we could become qualified. In fact, at the time when I was going through the FAFSA application, I thought I was going to have to jimmy rig things. And as I went through step by step and started listing out not only my assets, but Jason's assets as well, I realized that FAFSA didn't count anything that we had. For a long story short.
So
and
by default, there were assets
point,
that we had that were off the FAFSA that made you qualify. You felt like that you would never possibly qualify. That's precisely what Shellee does, helps people understand which are questioned or which are on the FAFSA and which are off the FAFSA. I want to back up for a minute. Shellee, again, you said I have two seventh graders, almost like you were giddy. What is the ideal tell us what the ideal person or ideal age range or kind of mentality, what is it that you think is the easiest to work with?
So it's really a student who sees the value of having a coach teach them the easy way to get through this process versus banging their head against the wall and Googling for hours and still not knowing if what they're doing is correct. So it is so much more pleasurable to work with students who lean in and say, Shellee, what do I need to do next? Or do I need to join this club? Or do I need to take 15 APs? Or it is a great place because the student enjoys the process versus feeling overwhelmed, freaked out, stressed out. It just is a very smooth process. We typically get a lot of second borns in our program because the first child, they crashed and burned and they spent all of the other kids' money. And now they're like, now what are we going to do? And then they hear about college ready in our program. So I tend to get the second born and the third and the fourth and so on and so forth. But I do get excited because if I can get a student young, I have great opportunity to mold them in a fun and gentle way versus fire hosing it their senior year and saying, hold on, because you still need this information.
So are you telling me that different extracurricular activities and other things that are outside of these classes help kids qualify for more scholarship money, and you're able to coach them through that. Am I understanding that correctly?
Absolutely. What happens is families are they take their kids to ballet and then soccer and then music and then performing arts, and it's just compound, 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 and these kids are stressed out and overwhelmed, and they're just feeling very all over the place. I often relate to it as having a dartboard and just throwing darts at a wall and hoping something sticks, where it doesn't need to be that way. If a student starts something, say in 8th grade, they can utilize that and grow it and build it and lead it and make a difference in the world, which is way more impactful than running around in circles with their hair on fire. So for us, if they can strategically understand these, we can show a student in 8th grade, these are the essays you're going to have to write your senior year. Let's go build the story that you get to write. That is very different than somebody who gets to see these essay prompts their senior year and I haven't done that. I have no idea what I'm going to write about. So it really is like giving the student the answer to the exam 4 years prior to the exam and say, let's start preparing now. It's brilliant, and it's a lot more fun to write about when they have that ability to see what's coming at them.
I want
And on
you to
top
walk.
of that,
Go ahead,
it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're the counselor that every parent wishes their child had. You know, it sounds
Absolutely.
like you're the one that has all the training and you're the one that has it all listed out. And unfortunately, everywhere where we look, we don't, the schools don't provide that.
And it really is interesting that families think that their high school counselor is going to do all of this. And what is reality, they don't get a bonus if your kid goes to college. They get nothing. They only get evaluated if your student graduates from high school. So their focus is helping the students who are struggling to get out of high school. That is where all their energy is spent. Even students who are at private schools and boarding schools, they still don't get half of what they need to be successful. And keep in mind, those schools have no idea what your family can or can't afford. And therefore, there is no focus on return on investment, which is doesn't matter if you're a multimillionaire or if you're need-based. Return on investment is a wise decision for the family long and short term.
So give me an example, maybe a typical example of what a 4-year college degree, what the investment is for a 4-year college degree without college ready, and roughly what it would be for the same college with college ready.
Well, I think a fun one that I can start with is an example of, my son who went to Harvard. He was not a perfect GPA and not a perfect test score, but he had a standout strategy. So I always like to put the right framework in place. So if you take a student who maybe wasn't perfect GPA or perfect test score, because that's usually where parents say, well, my kid is not that. And so you take a solid student, but not a perfect student, and you put them through, let's say USC. Most people understand the Trojans, right? That is a great school, but not a out of reach school. So at that school, with college ready, my son got a full ride because he knew about the freshman scholarship, which could have saved him $78,000 a year. Without college ready, and you go and apply to USC, it will cost you at least $78,000 a year, plus books, flights, whatever that looks like. So helping families understand colleges have a ton of money that their alumni pay in. They have very deep pockets. Getting in is half the battle. The other half is if you want scholarships. So understanding that nobody in your high school is going to hand you this opportunity, but college ready is evaluated on how you get in and how much money. So in the last 2 years, our students earned over $17.6 million in scholarships, and that was 51 students. So talk about plain return on investment. These families had massive opportunities for free money.
That's really cool. One of the things I want to point out here is we do on this podcast is we want you to master your millions. And part of that is gaining those millions. Let's do a theoretical for a minute, just a mind experiment. At $78,000 a year times 4 is $312,000. Now, we have talked about, and we'll be talking about several investments where you can get a conservative 6%. That means that your money's doubling every 12 years, right? And so let's say they're 20 years old. The value of that savings when they are, what's that, 32, 44, 56 is $2.5 million.
That's amazing.
That is a huge difference in any state in the union that I know of. So it's really valuable that you're not putting out that kind of money now in today's dollars, and then following some other advice that we have on the podcast and saying, all right, now where am I able to grow that in a tax advantage and safe way that then gives returns both for me or the parents as well as for the child and the grandchildren, the next generation. Another question for you, Shellee. You talked about getting a seventh grader and liking that and be able to work with them a lot. How's it for the parents? I don't want to get involved with that too much, do I? I mean, is it stressful for the parents? Walk me through a little bit what's the life for the parents? Most of the world's going to be listening as parents.
Sure. So the beauty is I had to figure this out on my own, and I spent between 20 and 30 hours a week for 4 years to figure this out. So for those parents who have an extra 20 to 30 hours a week, you can do it. I'll be your biggest cheerleader, and I will support you in every way that I can. The reality is most busy working parents who are driving their teenagers everywhere cannot manage that to do that. So not only is time equal to money, but money as well. So I went back to school and I got my master's and my certification. And then I started touring colleges, 25 colleges a semester. So talk about that investment of time and energy. It can be done. Or like you would hire a CPA to get you the best tax strategy and save you a ton of money, you can save a ton of time and money and you hire college ready. So what that looks like for the parent is you can actually give your student hugs and high fives when they have success and not worry about the rest. Or you can be involved as much as you want. You can be on our calls. We record every meeting, and so you get to hear your teenager speak to an adult about their dreams and what they want in the future, which, by the way, is priceless. Then you can decide, you know what, I don't want to edit their essay. I am not an editor. Well, we have professional essay editors who don't write the essay, but we help the student polish the essay. So if you're a parent who doesn't want to bunk heads with your teenager, this is a brilliant way to support them in high fives and hugs versus having to say, do your homework, do your chores, and oh, by the way, are your applications and essays done? So it really is as much as the family wants.
So I am sure there's many listeners bouncing off the walls to find out how on the earth do I get a hold of Shellee Howard? And if in the event you were to kind of lean over there, we could see behind you at something.com. It says college. I'm unable to see
collegereadyplan.com.
collegereadyplan.com for those that weren't able to read. It's a little small on my screen. So that's truly the best way to get a hold of you.
Yeah, and I would also like to share with your listeners a free gift. I have a best-selling book, and it is called How to Send Your Student to College Without Losing Your Mind or Your Money. And with that, your listeners can go to freebook.collegereadyplan.com and get a free copy of that book, which will help them build the foundation of how to talk to your teenager and the stages from 8th grade all the way through. And so it is a great place to start. And that is my gift to your listener.
Well, thank you, Shellee. Any parting words, Scott, or questions that you might have?
When it comes to mastering your millions, it's a lifestyle. It's not just one thing that you can do. And that's what's really cool, and why we wanted to bring on Shellee is because something as simple as what Jason brought up earlier. If we can get our money to work in a different way and get someone else to pay for our kids to do what we want them to and to go to college, that's what we want. Even better, we talked about FAFSA earlier, where if you can put your money in a certain place or in a certain area and have it not hurt you for having money, even better. And so that's what makes all of this work together. You need to understand not only how your kids fit into your picture, you need to understand how your own financial plan fits into your picture, and how this individual investment fits into your picture, and on and on and on. It all comes down to how well are you planning things out, and who do you know?
Great. I appreciate that. Shellee, any last words that you have? We so much appreciate you being on our podcast, and it's nice of you to offer that free gift to the listeners. I hope they will take advantage of that. And go ahead.
Absolutely. I have one last thing I will share, and it really ties into your podcast. Is planning and strategizing is everything. If you were to buy a home and figure out how you're going to pay for it later, that would be disaster. Don't do that for college. Don't let your 17-year-old figure out financial literacy the hard way. Help them. They don't understand what this means to their future. They have no idea that you have to sign your name to their loan. They think, oh, I'll just take out a huge loan. I'll figure it out later. So please, listeners, lean into what these gentlemen are saying, because they are brilliant when it comes to helping you do this in the right way. So thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to all our listeners. Remember that mastering your millions starts in your mind. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.